Hey guys, welcome to the first episode of the Your Weird Vodcast. This is the kind of episode that I'm titling Spotlight on a Weirdo, where basically I'm just interviewing someone doing something awesome in their life. Today's guest is a really awesome lady. She is a visual artist. She studied fine art at Edinburgh College in Scotland. Then she lectured in fine art and design in Aberdeen College in Scotland. Then she became obsessed with jewellery and silversmithing and enamelling, and now she lives in Western Australia with her own shop selling jewellery and artwork. And this is how I met her. She's now doing stand-up comedy. She's been doing it for a few years now, and she's making loads of waves as she's doing it. She's a really cool human being, and she's got a family at home, 2 kids and a husband. How on earth does she juggle it all? This is why I wanted her on the podcast, and this is what I hope we take away. So she's going to talk to us about, where she's come from, how she's done everything, why she's done everything, the challenges along the way, how she's a bit weird herself, and then she's also at the end going to give us a little bit of insight on how we can be better creatives too. She's got so much experience behind her and so much experience ahead of her, so much to come for her, and it's really, really such a pleasure to be able to interview her and bring this to you today. My guest today is the phenomenal Gill Cordiner. Please enjoy the show. Oh, welcome. Well, welcome to your studio.
Welcome to my studio, and it's lovely. It's lovely to have you here.
I'm so honoured because
I don't have many people in my studio because it's a bit like, it's like a pair of slippers, like they're just for me.
Yes.
I don't really like even my children wearing my slippers, and it's the same in my studio. It's a small private space.
Yeah.
I don't feel it's a public space. Some people do that, open studio thing, and I always get asked to do it, and I just think, no, I don't want people in my studio because it'd be weird,
yeah, totally.
And then I'd need to tidy up, and then I feel I'd need to be explaining stuff.
Yeah, which I suppose that can kind of ruin your process a little bit, can't it?
It can.
It kind of makes it a little bit more analytical as opposed to
inspired.
I
see, do you know, like on Pinterest, you see these artist studios, and I just look at them and I just think, no art was ever created in those bloody studios. Like when they're all gorgeous and
yes,
there's the bunch of flowers and it's all super minimal and Scandinavian, and I just think, I've never seen a studio really not long-term practicing artists. They're always a bit funky, they're always a bit like, they have an ugly bit, and
yeah,
it's not all IKEA furniture and dandelions in a milk bottle.
because that's quite stagnant, isn't it? Am I blurry? Wait, pausing. I swear to God, you want to make something auto. Can you tap on my face? So, in terms of your practice, obviously you started doing art when you were very young, I suppose.
I've always done it, and always quite seriously. Not in a I have children myself, and I watched them when they were super young, and they never ever had that obsession that I had. Probably from about 6.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, I used to make everything and make whole dioramas of everything out of plasticine and build things and create little worlds. It was a time before computers, and it was a time we didn't have lots of toys, so you had to use your imagination.
Totally.
But my kids were never really like that. They have too many choices,
Yeah.
It's a good and a bad thing. You don't want your children to grow up in adverse poverty and make them creative, but then there's other
there are benefits to it.
Benefits to poverty, because you just didn't have toys.
Yeah, you have to make them up.
To make it all.
What? That's it. But do you know, having imagination is one of, I talk about this a lot, especially the way that the world is progressing now, where we're, the movement of technology and artificial intelligence. The only thing that artificial intelligence can't do is have imagination. So more than anything.
Like my husband. Right, okay.
Yeah, so you need to find creativity and then be able to sort of I I don't know, you need to be able to like harness it and kind of grow it. And
I think there's different, like, people can be inherently quite creative, I think, and I always was, because I grew up in the same petri dish as my siblings who are not creative, and I was, but then they had each other, so I was excluded from that. I was like the single cell organism, and they had like morphed into some sort of other thing. So maybe my creativity came because it was necessity, which is the mother of all invention, you know. So maybe that's why. But when I taught, I used to see students who appeared to have a natural creativity about them, and then I would have students who didn't have that and who were much harder working and wanted to achieve it. A bit like people who are naturally funny versus people who want to be stand-up comedians. You know, like they can both achieve the same outcome but get to it by very different routes.
Yes, absolutely.
So I do believe one route would be the natural creative inclination, perhaps. And the other one would be dogged determination. Dogged. Just as my dog.
Well, we have little dog. Hi, Tiny.
So that's what I would say on that. But I've always loved making. There's something about that hand to brain to eye thing that some people really love more than others.
Yeah.
Some people have a more natural desire to make that connection between their hands and their brain. That's what I think. Maybe more so than it being like imagination, perhaps. I don't know. I mean, it's a difficult one. It's that whole craft and art, you know, discussion about one being an intellectual thing and one being a physical thing.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, because sometimes one can inspire the other more. Like sometimes if you can't come up with an idea, you need to use your hands in order to kick the brain into gear. And other times you might have an idea, but you can't get your hands to.
Yeah. I don't know. They're different. Once you start going down that rabbit hole of analysing it, it just becomes a bit mind blowing, and then you just want to kill yourself and then take up golf or something. I don't know.
Golf of all of them.
I know.
Don't know about that one.
Can't come up.
Well, so like going back to like having the space, does that mean all throughout your life you've had to kind of create a little nook for yourself?
Well, I always had, like, I had my bedroom at home when I was a kid. That was where I made things. And then I left home quite young. I went to art school. We had beautiful studio spaces looking out on Edinburgh Castle. And I just have always made space. I mean, you make space. If you were in a prison cell, I have a bit of a prison fantasy that I'm in prison and it's really nice because I've got a box of watercolours and a guitar and I get really good at guitar and I paint all the inmates and everyone loves me. And so it's a weird fantasy that, but I think it probably says it alludes a lot to my personality, that the thought of being trapped in a small space with paints is not a bad thing. That's insane, really. But also I wouldn't have to cook dinner.
That is definitely a positive. Yes.
Work out, learn an instrument, maybe learn a language, because I don't speak any other languages, and have a watercolours. But I mean, there was all those films in the 70s, before your time, my darling, where there'd be like a Clint Eastwood type person, like the Birdman of Alcatraz and everything, where there was always a person who painted, and they had quite an integral part. They were important in the prison hierarchy because there'd come a point where somebody needed something painted.
And then they just needed that one guy.
They needed that one guy, and that would be... And I don't know why that's making me laugh so much, but it is just bizarre.
It's because in your fantasy, it just means that you've become the painter and basically the savior, the hero of the film.
I just want to be important. I just want to make a difference. Because art never really seems to be that important. Because I remember... I think I grew up with that whole premise of, like, I was a creative child and my parents were just glad that I wasn't setting fire to the house and things like that, you know,
Yeah,
which
right.
I did try to do as well, but that's another story. So they were glad I was doing that, but in reality, they never saw it as being like. I remember my dad saying to me, "They're like, you can't go to art school because you'll never work a day in your life. You know, you'll be a blight on society." And that was truly what they believed.
Yeah.
Is like you were a blight. I mean, I didn't think I could disappoint my parents any more than becoming an arts graduate until I took up stand-up comedy. That's like the double whammy of failure for your children, you know. But the thing is, I would love my kids to be that kind of failure.
Yeah.
But they're probably going and do sensible bloody jobs, you know. That depresses me. It's like none of my kids have got that wild, like, drive for the arts that I had. Like, they've got drive for other things, but it's not for the arts. That's depressing. You know, I just think, why aren't you artists? Why don't you want to be sculptors and painters and musicians? But they don't. They've got their own life and they've got their own path, and I won't stop them from doing what they want. My dad wanted me to be an engineer. I mean, can you imagine?
Oh, no.
How bad an engineer would I have been?
Oh,
I mean,
you
just
couldn't.
dreadful.
No, you'd be trapped. You'd be in a little pigeonhole.
No.
You wouldn't like that.
I'd be sacked really early on. Like I wouldn't make it. I'd never make it to long service leave. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I kind of took the path, not of least resistance. I always knew that's what I wanted to do. I never wavered from it and thought, God, imagine if I'd become this. I've never had that thought. Like, oh, imagine.
That's really good.
Well,
like, does that mean you've been led by a particular like feeling or sensation? Is it kind of like that's the thing that makes me feel excited and inspired? That's what I'm going to do, or is it just been like a deeper knowing? Like you haven't really had to think or feel about it. You're just like, okay, I'm doing this, and now I'm doing this. Actually, there's like a little thing in between.
Possibly, but I'm very much like, I'm flighty, but the art thing, I just never questioned that was what I was good at and that's what I should do. I was really good at English. I could easily have done an English degree and I would have loved that, to be fair, but not more than art. You know, like I loved it, but I didn't love it more than art. You know, like there was nothing never came close to that. And I look at some people and I think, imagine not being able to make things, what that must be like to the ordinary people.
God, yes.
The ordinary people in the street who can't. I just think, I'd hate not to be able to do it. Because when we go on holiday, I always paint. And I just think, how is this weird for my family? Do they look at me and just, do you know what I mean? Like, what do they think when they look at me doing that? Do they look at me and think, I wish I could do it? I don't think they do.
They don't? What do you think they do?
I think they just think that's what mum does.
Interesting. Well, that kind of brings me to like one of the key themes of this podcast is like, when are the times in your life where you've been called weird or what you're doing is weird? You know, like out of the norm.
My entire life.
Yeah.
Like I've never, I mean, I think I've always felt weird. People have always said I was weird and strange. I never was that. I grew up in an area that appeared to be quite affluent. First of all, I grew up in the country where there was nobody to call you weird. So you can just be what you want to be till you start school, and then you realise you just don't have the same tools to navigate when you've been brought up in isolation, and then you start school. There's no preschool, there's no play groups, there's none of that, you know. Your parents didn't do anything to integrate you into other children's lives. Yeah. So you start school and you're weird.
Yeah, you're just like this own like free atom.
But then, sorry, my sisters weren't as weird, I don't think. I don't think they struggled with assimilation as greatly as I did. I struggled with that, and I was always really sharp and really smart and mouthy. So that made you like, I always knew stuff because I read a lot of books. I read a lot of books because my mum and dad would buy boxes and boxes of books at jumble sales, like a car boot sale or something.
Yeah.
And that's what you would have for entertainment. So I would be reading Dickens, and I read Chaucer when I was 11 about Middle England. And, you know, I just read really wordy books. I used to sit with a dictionary and a book and read it till I came to a word I didn't know. I mean, that's weird. And then you start school and that's your mindset. Your vocabulary is already weird.
Yeah.
So that'll set you apart for a start.
Yeah.
I was always better at drawing and making things. So people hated that, you know. So I just was always that oddity. I was small. I was a tiny child who had an amazing vocabulary and could draw really well. So people kind of hated you from the outset, you know. So
Did you kind of like at that age, did you use it as sort of a superpower? Like were you kind of like, all right, you already think I'm weird. I can't do anything against that. So I'm going to own it and use it. Or did you kind of sort of segment yourself away for a little bit while you were a child?
No, I never had the self-awareness to understand that if I didn't know the answer to every question and answer it in class, if I just shut up, then people wouldn't hate you as much. But I knew the answer, you know. So
you just got to tell
I was
it.
like, please, miss, you know, like, and I think about that now and I just think, you know, that's quite hard. And hard for other people, you know, like I wasn't ever trying to outshine other people in my class. I just was understimulated by school.
Yeah.
And so I was just trying to keep myself amused. I didn't ever think, well, I'll just try and be like them. I'll try and be thick and then they'll like me. Like that never occurred to me.
Yeah.
Whereas now I think about it, I thought, you could just shut up, you know. Do you know
Draw
what I
some
mean?
more like pictures in the margins
just
of your book.
shit cows and that, you know, like just not like anatomically correct cows with the breeding cycle behind them and that, and like, you know, the right foliage in the foreground. I don't know. I mean, I was an overachiever, but not ever to make other people feel bad just because I was understimulated by school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really, really incredible though. Like to still just be able to continue doing it.
Relentlessly.
Yeah, no, but like I think that's really inspiring because it's like although like, you know, you might have had some kids hating you, like at the end of the day, like it's only because they wish that they could do that and be like that. Like I know I had that in school a little bit. Yeah, they'll just be like, they're like, oh, why is she so smart? And like I'd hear it behind me, and I'm like, what? This you're picking on me for this? Like, yeah.
But I think you kind of cling to it like a limpet to a rock, don't you? Like the skill or the talent or the ability that you know is what you cling to because you've nothing else. You've no other navigation points.
Absolutely,
You know, like I didn't have anyone, and like parents didn't talk to you. Like we talked to our kids, you know, how's things? How's everything go? There was none of that, you know. Like you just got on with it, and that was it.
Yeah, it's just like
either sunk or swum, and that was it. There was no middle ground of like, you know, maybe we could get a tutor for you if you. It's like no, there was just. So I think I didn't ever question my creativity as being a bad thing. I knew that was the one thing that brought me joy. Maybe that was it.
Yeah.
In school, which was rotten. Like primary school I hated, secondary school I hated. It was always at odds with everyone.
Yeah.
And it never gave me what I wanted, you know. I had a couple of nice teachers in amongst it, but generally I found it unfulfilling. So just putting your head down and getting better at the thing that you love seems like a better way to navigate stormy waters. I don't know if that's right or not, but
I mean, that makes a lot more sense. And I mean, it kind of plays into sort of how to use it to your advantage these days, you know, like if you think about, you know, like if you're trying to sell a bottle or something, a new drink or something like that, it's going to be the unique selling point or like it's whatever is weird. So taking that into when you're an adult, and if you are your own brand, it's got to be that thing that sets you apart and that thing that makes you stand out. Yeah. And obviously, like, you know, like that's worked for you so far. Like you've had like an illustrious creative career so far.
Yeah. Well, look, I think you get to a middle point in your life, and I think then all the weirdness of your life makes a lot more sense. Like, I think you get to about 50 and then you go, yes, I'm all right with that now. It's okay. And, like, you stop making excuses for the weirdness and then you own it more.
Yeah.
And so I'm far more comfortable as a woman over 50 than I was even in my 40s, my 30s, my 20s, you know, my teens. I now feel, I wish I'd had the I don't have self-awareness. I still do not have that. No, I don't. I wish I had the self-belief that it was all right to not fit in. Because I think all my life I battled with the fact that I was weird and that I was at odds with everything. And I didn't want to be like that, but I didn't know how not to be like that. You know, if I'd figured out how not to be like that, I wouldn't be what I am. So, you know, I'm sure if I was clinically tested, they'd find plenty syndromes and medical diagnoses, but none of which will change me being what I am. No. So I don't really see the benefit for me in knowing. Somebody said to me, you're probably ADHD, probably Asperger's. And I'm like, I'm probably a lot of things, but, you know, like, I don't, knowing it and having it on a bit of paper is not going to change my day-to-day. You know, you still deal with the same stuff.
That's exactly right.
But I do feel happier in my oddity now, and now I don't feel as odd, weirdly. I think comedy's been great for that, because that's a strange collection of people, and
the strangest.
It kind of makes you feel it's okay to be strange and it's okay to be weird, because it's a community weirdness and all sorts of weird are accepted.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like a band of thieves, isn't it? We're all like a Dickens tribe of urchins.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
So I think that's been good for me, because I realised that I may well have always been a bit peculiar, but I'm not as peculiar as some of the people I work with. You know, or maybe I am, but it's not as judged. I think there you go. Judgment's a part of it, isn't it?
Oh, a huge part.
Is if people weren't judgmental about your weirdness, it'd be much easier to be an individual. Art school was all about being an individual and having an original thought, as long as it conformed to the prescribed view of what that was. They wanted you to be different, they wanted you to be weird, they wanted you to be experimental, but it all still had to fit within their taste. And there's a thing, you know, because like there'd be people at art school who were so different from everyone, but they were too different.
It's so just too much.
They just weren't accepted. You know, they weren't avant-garde because they were odd. They were weird. There was a woman who painted dead birds. She'd find roadkill and drag it into the studio and do these wee paintings of these wee squished birds.
Whoa.
Yeah, she did it. And she was a strange woman. You know, she was a withered crone. And everybody used to just like, oh, you know, what's that about? It's like she was doing the most different thing from anybody.
Yeah.
But that was not celebrated because it wasn't on brand with what avant-garde art was in the 80s, you know?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get
so
what you're saying.
Be weird, but be this kind of weird.
Yeah.
And comedy's a wee bit like that as well. Oh, have your own viewpoint, you know, have it, as long as it's not...
Yeah.
Don't really like that viewpoint. You know, say what you want. Just not sure.
Don't do that. Just within the PC realm, and also
not just PC, but about also what people perceive audiences connecting to. It's like we all have to do a certain type of comedy. You know what I mean? There's like, do it about whatever you like, just don't do it about that. I mean, can you imagine if there's no Christians doing Christian comedy, is there? There's not.
I don't think so, no.
Think about it.
Yeah, that's true.
There's nobody in there going, oh, God. I was at church the other day. I'm not saying, look, I'm an atheist, but what I'm saying is, there's parameters and everything, isn't there?
I mean, it's not to say that it's not existing within smaller
church
echo
groups.
chambers. Yeah, you know, like they might have their own open mic.
Yeah, in America, apparently, church comedy's like very high paying. You have to go and, you have to go and do like church comedy, which can have no sexual connotations at all. Like nothing, no swearing, but nothing even, like you can't allude to sexuality. Yeah, because I know this guy who does a lot of church stuff, and he says that's the big paying cash, but it's all got to be jokes that have nothing. What would you do jokes about? Like if
the only thing I've got coming into my head is like washing powder. Like I'm like, what did you? Yeah,
it may be about pets and things, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean, it's a good exercise, isn't it?
But I'm very much of the Billy Connolly approach to swearing. Like I feel it's self-expression, and stand-up's that last sort of bastion of self-expression, isn't it? I mean, arts is self-expression as well, but it's not verbal. So.
Yeah. It's not. Well, I mean, like that's something that's interesting as well. Like, you know, earlier you said that you'd like to be in jail and to do paintings and just in a single cell room. Yet now we're talking about being in front of, between 1 to 200 people, depending on the night and where you're performing.
Yeah.
And then with a community of other oddballs. Like, how does that? Is that like two different versions of you that are coexisting?
Yes.
Yes.
You know, there's that, people always talk about, you know, being an introvert, extrovert. I mean, you know what it's like. Like, well, you're very chatty and sociable. You're more so than I am, perhaps.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Might be on a par.
Well, something. But you know, there's that bit of like, you go on stage and you can be making everyone laugh and smile, and you are that. Make them laugh, and then you go off stage and you're like, don't speak to me. Don't speak to me. It's like I don't really want to be that person off stage. I don't want to go to parties. Weirdly, my sister, who I rarely speak to, never speak to, like communicate very infrequently, and she emailed me out the blue asking me to make a piece of jewellery, and she said that she'd been talking to my mum about me doing comedy, and she said, you always wanted to be the centre of attention. And I just thought, what a crock of shit that is. Like, where does that come from? I have never wanted, like, that has never been ever my plan. But I think your actions can be seen as that. Like when I was at school and I was answering all the questions in class like a pain in the arse, I think that's people thinking you're attention seeking. But in your mind, you're just answering the bloody question because you knew the answer.
Yeah, like I got the answer. Let's move on.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's like you're trying to just rush through the book. You're like, I know this. Can we move on? I know this.
Next
move
one,
on.
Next one. Next chance. And maybe stand-up's a bit like that as well. It's like you're answering the question when you're on stage, and when you're off stage, it's just like, you know.
But like, how do you like? I don't know, like, do you have to, obviously you've been doing comedy for 3 years.
Nearly 4.
Nearly 4 years now.
3 and a
yeah.
half. 3 3/4.
3 3/4.
Yeah.
So, like, before that, though, do you feel
time
like...
than some people breastfeed their children, but that's another thing. I read an article
Whoa.
about that. Whoa.
Oh, God. I just
No,
started watching, like,
no.
Game of Thrones again, and there's, like, that. And I'm like, ugh,
Yeah,
it made me so
anyway,
uncomfortable.
yeah.
Anyway. So, like, before you started doing stand-up comedy and you were just doing the art, did you feel like there was something missing? Like, you were kind of, like, you know, like you wanted to get something out? Like, you wanted to say it? Yeah.
I think I've always never understood that there was a necessity to be what my sister would classify as an attention seeker.
Hey, look. The best
you
of
know,
us are. It's
Yeah,
fine. No.
whatever. And I was always a theatrical child. If I'd done theatre as a child, I'd have got it out of my system.
Yeah.
And maybe I would have been an actor. Who knows? But I definitely had that in me. And I would always be like maybe just a bit too much. Too much.
Too much.
Much too
Too
much.
weird.
Just too
You're
much.
doing your version of bringing the dead birds and painting them.
Well, I mean, like at parties and that, like social events, I'd never quite know how to answer the question. I'd always be extra.
Yes.
It's like I overcompensated for my weirdness by being extra weird and being really inappropriate as well, you know, like making jokes about things that I should never have made jokes about. You know, like today, for example,
Yeah.
I'm at Pilates this morning. There's a girl in the reformer next to me, and she's got on leggings. And the brand's LSKY, is it? Or do you know the...
Oh, God, I don't know.
So it's got all the lettering around the bottom of the ankle. And there's 3 rows of the letters, so it's LSKY or whatever, LSKY. But then the downstroke of that's 3 Ks. So she's got the Ku Klux Klan on her leg. And all through class, I'm going to tell her. I'm going to ask her if she knows. I'm going to ask her. I'm going to tell her. Look, do you know you've got KKK on your... And at the end, I'm like, no, of course you're not going to tell her. Don't tell her. The don't tell her bit is a recent thing. Previously, I would have told her, and I would have told her loudly so the whole room would have heard it.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean?
Wow. But would so you're saying that you would say it loudly so that everyone else could hear it because then you would entertain the rest of the room?
Yes. Like that, like the class clown.
Yes.
Gillian is very bright, but a bit of a joker. All that sort of stuff on your school report cards. Bit of a daydreamer. If paid, spent more time concentrating, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah, blah,
you
blah.
know.
Yeah.
So it was picked up from an early age that I would try and make people laugh. And my son's a bit like that. He tries to make people laugh to the detriment of other things. You know, he's still got a wee bit of that. He's quite like me in that way.
Yeah.
You know, he thinks that will make him accepted. If they're laughing at me, and maybe that's why you're doing comedy. If they're laughing at me, they like me.
Yeah, and also if I'm telling them what to laugh at, they can't laugh at me as well. Or if I'm pointing it out first.
And also, it's a very easily controlled way of, like, people can like you for 5-10 minutes and then that's it. Wash your hands and go.
Yeah.
You know, they don't need to like you after, you know. So it's like I can make them like me for 10 minutes, 15 minutes max, 20 at push. One day it'll be an hour. But I can make them like me for that period of time. And that's enough. I don't need people to, you know, like I always look at these things of people who've got the huge groups of family and friends and having a lovely dinner and lunch and everyone's getting on. I just think, it'd be lovely to be like that, but I know I am not that.
Yeah, I know what you mean, like, because I can be like that as well. Like, I can be in large groups of people, but it's not all the time. Sometimes I can only, like, I just prefer to have, like, a one-on-one
I can't really do
conversation.
the large groups of people.
Yeah.
That big table. I don't know who to speak to. You know,
Mm-hmm.
can't just, and then I'll obsess on the person next to me in a really creepy fashion and overly talk to them till they get to the stage where they've really had enough, and then you'll see them go, and then they start talking to the other person, and now what do? They now pick like
Just
that
treading
person
water.
that I've ignored that one the whole meal, or the one opposite. Like, do I talk to them now?
See, I love this. I'm like, I want to run courses on how to talk to groups of people. I was talking to someone else about it. I'm like, I see all conversations as like a maths equation.
Yeah, well, I'm not very mathematical, but I used to, apart from the present fantasy, I've also had the Tuscan villa fantasy.
Oh.
Where under the pergola with the draping wisteria, with this huge table of family and friends, and everybody loves me, and I serve beautiful pasta. And I'm beautiful as well in a Nigella Lawson fashion. The reality of that is I'd be in the kitchen sending food out.
Yeah, that's what happens.
Because I don't want to speak to the people I'm cooking for. And then I'd be pissy because they didn't bring in their bowls. You know, like the reality versus the fantasy for me is
so different.
Yeah, you drive.
So different.
Yeah, I know.
But then, so like with doing comedy, right? So because like obviously like doing your art is very introverted.
Yes, silent.
Silent, yeah. Except you got the tunes going on. You had your tunes cranking when I walked in.
I sometimes listen to
nice. Yeah.
audiobooks. I listen to a lot of audiobooks and podcasts.
Yeah.
Like a podcast. And I just work away silently. My dog comes in, says hello to me, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I sit in silence, and it's delightful.
But then like you bookend that by doing comedy, which is very loud and very late and very unruly. Has that been...
It's the best of both worlds, really, isn't it?
Yeah. But then like, see, this is one thing that I think about as well, because it's like I used to always get told that I was really weird because I liked doing so many things. I was doing something else new. I was trying something else. I'd done another course. I'm playing with something. I picked up another hobby. Now I'm doing like 4 things at once. I've got another project. I've got them all going on.
Yeah. Spinning plates.
And I love it. If I don't have multiple spinning plates, like I feel
miserable.
I feel I need them. I can focus on one project, but I can't focus on it unless there's other projects in the background because they're all influencing it.
Yes.
Without my realizing. Have you experienced the same thing in the sense of people being like, oh, you've got, maybe just settle down if you just pick one? Or
if I'm not flat out, I'm miserable and depressed. And then I sit and I turn it inwards and go, oh, I'm a horrible person. My life's a disaster. Do you know? Like, so I just keep busy. I literally would have been the musician on the Titanic as it was sinking. Just play.
Just get it
That's
done.
a difficult piece to play. And my dad, I think, influenced me in that because he's the same. He's 80. He's not in great health, but he'll still put in a full day's work.
Really?
Yes. And he buys tools in like car boot sales.
Yeah.
And refinishes them and refurbishes the handles and sands them and oils them and sharpens them and polishes them, then sells them. And it's not for money, it's for something to do.
Yeah.
But he'll do that like he's busy,
Yeah.
Like, that will be me. My dad always used to say, they'll need to nail me in the coffin. And I agree with that entirely. Like, I am of that. I won't ever retire. I mean, I'm sort of phasing comedy in so that I don't need to do as much production jewellery. And I can do more expanded, ludicrous things.
Yeah.
That don't involve, to it being so punishing, because it's quite hard physically producing a lot of work. So
absolutely, yeah, it's really taxing.
Yeah,
because
on your joints and that, and your back and your neck and your hands, and so it's quite physical. But then I think when I stop making jewellery, I'll still make jewellery, but I won't make thousands of earrings a year.
Absolutely, it'll just change.
And I'll do a lot more painting because I love painting, and that's something I'll never not paint because I love painting. I've always loved painting. And that's something I look forward to, not having to work to paint. But I still want to work, but I'll have other. But comedy's good because it doesn't involve that part of you.
Absolutely, it's a separate
parts.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's not physically hard, because it's physically hard, but it's not as hard on your joints.
Yeah, definitely.
So.
What was I going to ask? The concept of changing, the relationship you've had with creativity now, and the way that it's still with creativity but it's changing and evolving and you're just sort of following it.
Yeah.
Do you have does that mean you have sort of a practice before you create anything? So before you come into the studio, or when you get into the studio, or before you even do stand-up comedy, is there something that you do to sort of bring yourself back to center or prepare to
like a ritual? Yeah. I think there are rituals in the morning. I like to have a cup of coffee. I know it sounds like not a ritual, but it kind of is. I have a cup of coffee and I just sit and look at the garden and sort of tune out a wee bit, and then I come down and just go on with it. Because once I'm in here and I just work.
Yeah.
I don't really have breaks. I mean, I've even peed in the garden because I can't be bothered walking up to the house. Do you know what I mean? I just think I'm in the middle of it. So I'll work straight through till I've had enough.
Yeah.
And then I'll go up, and I usually have to make dinner for the kids and my husband. So there's that as well. So I have a period of time that I just work flat out.
Yeah.
And then there's blocks of time where I'll do different things. I'll do a block of painting, or when I have artwork to do for other things. But with comedy, for me, I think it's getting ready.
Yeah.
Is absolutely part of my ritual of tuning out, putting on makeup and doing your hair. Do you find that?
Definitely.
I feel like I don't want to, it's not just that I want to look a certain way on stage. The process of doing it is my preparation. And that drive in, listening to the right music is also a part of it. If I don't, I've seen me pull over in the car if my phone isn't connected to my, and I can't listen to the radio. If
too chatty.
It's I don't want to hear people's conversation. I want to hear specific tunes that put me in the right mood. And weirdly, there's a few reoccurring tunes that you go to quite a lot.
Yeah.
One of mine's it is Black Sabbath. I love a bit Black Sabbath going into a gig. Don't ask me why. I love Black Sabbath, but I mean,
also, it kind of makes sense. Sometimes when you're going into a gig, you have to have that rough and tumble. I'm ready for you.
You don't want I was listening. I was on shuffle, and it was on a playlist that has, you do these Spotify playlists with 10 million songs.
Yeah.
And it went on it. We're on an ELO, Mr. Blue Sky, and I'm like, what? That's too chipper. Get that. It has to be upbeat, but it has to be I think rock's good.
Yeah.
Or something. I like Sleaford Mods. I like that sort of edgy sort of. Yeah, I don't know. Music's hugely important part of my day.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've noticed that just being in here.
I always listen to music. There would never be a day in my life, never, where I haven't listened to hours of music.
Really? Yeah. That's really cool.
And that's been since the first record I ever bought was Black Sabbath Paranoid. And I bought it at a jumble sale when I was a kid because the label, which was the Vertigo label, is an optical illusion. It was black and white concentric circles that form this sort of optical illusion. And I bought it for that. And I had this old mono radio record player that I bought all these singles for, and I'd put them on. And then when I was about 14, I got a stereo record player. Jesus, half of the instruments that you didn't hear. You're like, whoa, where did the guitar solo come from? I was like, this whole world of oh my God,
That's amazing.
That's the backup singers. Yeah, so yeah, that was huge. But I think music helps me be creative. Like, I think it's part of the creative process. But then also is an empty mind as well is great, especially for stand-up. I get really lucid thoughts, I don't know about you, just before I'm drifting off to sleep.
Yes.
And I wake up and I go, I've got to write that down. Right, and I'm blind now because I wear glasses, right? So I get up and I'm like almost asleep, and I get up and then I write it in a scroll without my glasses on.
Yep.
And then I get up in the morning and I'm like, what does that say? It's like, you know, one was Toblerone EpiPen. And I still don't know what that joke was. I was like,
Toblerone EpiPen.
Toblerone. Well, I think it said Toblerone and EpiPen. And I'm like, but what was the connection?
That's so funny. I don't know why that's funny.
It just is.
Yeah, it's just
like,
funny.
But then I'm tormented by the fact that I can't write the joke that links up Toblerone and EpiPen.
It'll come at some point. It's just like in you. It's just in you. Yeah. I know that happens to me if I wake up, I don't know, just really briefly. I know I've told a joke in a dream and then woken up.
And it
be
was
like,
dead
that's
funny.
great. And then I'm like, where's my notebook? I was too far away. I'll remember it. No, I don't. You never do. And then normally, because I keep a book next to me.
I'll do
with
it
the
on my
pen
phone.
in it, and I write it. No, because I don't. If I get the light, I'll be too stimulated and stay awake.
Yeah.
So I have to do it in the dark. I'm pretty good for writing in the dark, to be fair.
I would really love. Probably we need something like I don't know. There must be something.
Just like a voice recorder. They exist.
Phone.
Yeah, but there's those,
phone,
but there's
mate.
also like I have one of those
phone, mate.
old school ones where you
Yeah,
have
like
to
a dictaphone, like Columbo.
Yeah, exactly.
I was thinking about talking about that lady, that broad over there. I don't know what the thumbs do.
I don't know. It keeps pressing. You're like, you're turning it off and on. You're only getting like one word every time. That's the best.
So I mean, they're all connected. Like weirdly, now that I do stand up regularly, and I do my art practice, they seem symbiotic. Like they seem, even though they're not connected, they seem to work super well together because they both occupy totally different parts of my brain. It feels like that. I'm sure somebody will go, oh, that's your left brain, that's your right brain. I don't know, whatever.
It doesn't matter.
But it definitely feels like they're definitely both important parts of me. And I feel more complete as a human being since doing stand-up. That sounded deep. I must preface that.
Though.
I preface that by saying I think it's helped my self-acceptance more. And it's also helped me make sense of being a weirdo.
Yeah.
And being a weird and owning the weird and going, I can make money out of this.
Yeah.
Because I do it in my art and I do it in what I make, because I never make, I'm self-employed because I like to make what I want to make. I don't want to dance to anyone else's tune, right? There you go. I've always danced to the beat of my own drum my whole life. And being self-employed allows you to make what you want, and if you sell it, you sell it. If you don't, you don't. And I don't really care. As long as I can make enough money to not be broke, I'm cool with that. I don't need to make more money. Like, I won't make things that are commercially successful just because that will make money. Money in itself's never been enough of a motivation. Like, I like money. I like spending money. I mean, who doesn't? But I won't make 101 thing just because they'll sell. I'd rather make 5 of that, 1 of that will never sell, because I want to make it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so comedy in that way is the same. I want to make my jokes. Some will land, some won't. But I enjoy the process of telling the crap jokes as well as the good jokes.
Yeah,
totally. You know, and so that's the same thing. So it's like making money out your own eccentricity and strangeness. It like feels good, because then you think, it's not just you being a weirdo. It's just not, you're not just that kid anymore that's sitting in class wondering why you're not invited to the party, you know. I've struggled with that my whole life. You know, why don't I get invited to the party that I don't want to bloody go to? Do you know what I mean? Now I'm like, I don't want to go to the party. I don't get invited to the party, and that's good because I'd never go to the bloody party. So now it makes more sense. So it helps me accept myself better and accept that you can be as goddamn strange as you like, and there's a place for it in the world if you can figure out a way to make sense of it.
Yeah.
But I do worry about kids that are young and in school and who don't understand that some way down the line they'll figure out what they can do with that, you know, and they'll not just be that strange, weird wee kid that's bullied and picked on and their life's a misery. You know, they can't see that there'll come a point where that weirdness will work for you. And it feels really good for the 50-year-old me to think about the 10-year-old me and think, all that time that's passed. I said 50. I'm 56. Who are you kidding? But I think about that and I think, yeah, I owe it to the struggle of the younger me to make it work now. So when I'm on stage and I'm, you know, making people laugh under my control, under my spell, I think it's been a long time coming to make that part of me make sense and to make me feel better about me for me. And other people will enjoy it in the process, and that's fantastic. Yeah. But the number one reason I do it is for me. You know, the side effect of that is that it makes people laugh, and that's lovely. You know, it's a lovely side effect. But I just wish there was more inclusive things for kids that are weird. You know, no, they don't fit in and don't find their place in the world. And I wish there was programs for them to help them see that there are career paths for weirdos.
Absolutely.
And the things that you think might make you weird one day will be what make you fantastic and undeniable. And that's what I love about it. So
oofed. That was a delicious, delicious little statement there. That's wicked. That is exactly what it's all about. Well, absolutely.
It's good to come a point in your life where you can make sense of the traumas and the hardships and say that there's some good of it, you know. And the good of it's been down to you. It's not been down to anyone else, you know. It's not been, nobody's, you know, tried to bolster you up or help you along the way. You made it because you've made it, because you've been true to yourself, whatever that's like, you know.
Beautiful. All right. That's the best. I'm so excited to share this with people. So there's only a couple of things that I want to go over next. So the first thing is just what do you have any advice for someone who's just trying to get in touch with their creativity, or maybe like even if it's in part of the arts that you do, if there's a drawing exercise or something?
A sketchbook. I've done self-portraits. Here, my best advice to anyone who loves to draw is self-portraits are the way to learn to draw, right? Like ultimately you will learn more about drawing from self-portraits than drawing anything else, because they're the hardest thing to do. I've done them since I was about 10, and I have a collection of self-portraits through my whole life, and I've kept them all.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. And I always believed that they were the best way to keep in touch with your inner self and the physical growth of learning to draw and observe, because even though you draw the same thing each time, it's always different and your perception's different. And I went to the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam, and they had this beautiful exhibition of little A5 self-portraits Van Gogh had done all through his life. And they were all the same format, they were all the same size wee boards, and they had them in this huge big line, maybe about 20 or 30 of them. And you could see where his mental health slipped in and out, his lucidity was there, he was gone. it was the most heart-rendering, beautiful, and it was like an epiphany for me to look at that, because that's what I'd always believed was important, and they were important for Van Gogh. Like, no matter where he was in his life, he'd do a self-portrait, and I've always done them, and so they've been my, like, compass point. So if you're stuck and you've got nothing, you got a mirror, you got a pencil, you got a bit of paper, you can always do it. You can do them anywhere. They're not for everyone to look at and go, oh, you're great at drawing, forget about that. Keep them for yourself. They're a private thing. They're an exercise. Sketchbooks, keep a sketchbook, draw. Even, you know, try and structure it. If you struggle to draw or struggle to make, you know, get a journal, even if you're writing in it, even if you're pulling things out in papers and sticking them on and adding things, doing collage. If that's your jam, do that. Stick in pictures, write about them. There has to be something that goes from your head on a surface, and that's a really great way. I have a MacBook Pro and not MacBook Pro, iPad Pro that I like to draw on as well. They're a nice thing to do as well, but it's not quite the same, I don't think, as making the physical marks.
Yeah.
Pencils are lovely. Sharpen some pencils. Sometimes when I'm just like, can't think anything to do, I'll sharpen a pencil because it's kind of nice. And then I'll just paint, like I'll get my watercolours out and I'll put a big blob of water on and I'll just drop paint on it, and I think that's nice. Just make a connection with something. It doesn't all need to work out. Your sketchbook shouldn't be all beautiful pictures. Half of it should just be raw.
Yeah.
But I've got sketchbooks that I've had since I was 10, and I look at them now and I think it is so nice to look back on your life, see that because you go back to that point in time. So totally. Sketchbooks great and self-portraits are great.
That's brilliant advice. I love that. That's really actionable. That's really fun.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the last thing, so obviously like I started this podcast because I wanted it to be something that I would have liked to have listened to when I was struggling creatively.
Yeah.
And so part of the thing as well is like I have actively over the past couple of years been trying to get back in touch with my creativity because I left it for a long time and I didn't touch anything. And so now part of like me doing this podcast, I set myself the challenge where I have to do a portrait of the person I'm interviewing with their superpower. So obviously before the podcast I asked you what your superpower would be, and please tell us what your superpower of choice was.
My superpower was the ability to steal collagen from younger people, because I think that would keep me young and vibrant and I wouldn't have to spend a fortune on skincare.
That's it. And I was like, it's genius. It's genius. Because I feel like, you know, as a second to that, I feel like you have to then be able to live for longer. Like that's just what would happen.
It's got to be part of it.
Totally.
And
so
maybe I could have extra and I could sell that. I don't know. Show me this picture. I'm just dying to see this.
So wait, and so just context, like I only got this iPad like a few months ago. I'm still learning how to use Procreate.
Yeah.
Anyway, here's you with your collagen sack. Obviously the listeners at home.
That is so great.
Wow. I went and found you and I was like, that's a really nice dress on you and that's the outfit you wear. And I'm like, all right,
that's fantastic. Look at it. It's like a Hansel and Gretel little basket. And I like that the collagen's like, oh, that's just fun. That is the cutest thing I've ever seen. And I've never, like, nobody's ever drawn me.
No way.
Not really, not properly, you know.
Oh, well, I'm really excited that
I think that's fantastic. And the colour is absolutely spot on.
Yay.
And I have a pink cape and you know I love pink.
You love pink. That's why you get a pink cape.
Thank you so much. That's fantastic.
Oh, great. So I'll send that to you. You can have it.
I'm having that.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the You're Weird podcast today, Jill. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you, and I'm so freaking thrilled that I've met you and you're in my life now. It's wicked.
I know, and the same, you know, like comedy's brought us together, but then we also had this. You made these earrings.
I did.
You made these earrings in my studio, and you were a good student. You know, you weren't like you didn't stuff up anything apart from the ear wires, but we'll talk.
I
about
did.
that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
You're a very good student, and I would suggest that you find something that you can connect with your creativity, because I think it's good for your soul.
Yeah.
I think it's good for you to make things. I think it's the human condition. We were designed to make things, and modern life has gotten in the way of that. And we don't need to make bowls anymore because we can buy them in Target, and we don't need to knit jumpers because they're cheaper in, you know, Kmart. But we should knit jumpers and we should make bowls so that we can feel a connection with our hands, our minds. And drinking out a cup you've made is a lovely thing, you know. Wearing the earrings that you made is a lovely thing, because the pride you have in that and the connectivity is the human condition. And that's missing in life. And I might be a hippie. I probably am. I'm too aggressive to be a hippie. But I believe in the hippie.
Hippie adjacent.
Hippie adjacent. Hippie ally. I'll hold your bong, but I won't smoke it. Go make something. And, you know, even if it's a loaf of bread, make a loaf of bread. That's a wondrous thing. That'll take you all day, but that's a lovely, indulgent thing to do. I think we need to make time to make things. That's what I think. Even if it's a poem, a song, don't matter. Do something creative, you know.
Love it. That's beautiful. Let's leave it there because that's gold. That's such gold. Thank you so much, Jill.
A pleasure, Hannah. Lovely.
How cool was that? I told you she's a cool person. If you want more information on Jill, you can just check out the comments below. I'll put all of her details. We can go chuck her a follow. And also, if you want to hear a little bit more about, you know, my process, because I'm actually going to do her homework. I'm going to do all of the self-portraits. I do recommend you do it too, because I reckon we can get a lot out of them. And I'm going to document mine. So if you want to check that out, go and follow the Patreon. So it's at patreon.com/Hannah Sainty. I'll have some other juicy bits and pieces in there as well. There'll be like uncut episodes, early episodes and those sorts of things, all like, you know, nice tasty treats if you want to go follow it. And as always, if you could just subscribe to this podcast and to the YouTube video, wherever you can do it, it'd be awesome. If not, I hope you enjoyed the show, and I hope to see you on these wavelengths soon. Remember to stay weird, because being normal is really boring.